We're in an age right now where social media is really driving a lot of people's brands, and people are putting themselves out there, making themselves even more vulnerable. But there's rules of engagement, and I think at every part of the journey, a model needs to really be serious about knowing what the good sides are and what the bad sides are, the perks, the benefits, but also the dangers that they can face. And sadly, we've seen some very sad situations where girls will compromise themselves because they feel that's the only way they can get ahead. It's not necessary. I think if you really work hard and you do what is necessary for you to become successful in the business, you will get your reward. And unfortunately, in this country, it's a very small industry, very tight-knit community. We know each other a little too well, and reputation precedes you. And if people know that that's what you're about in terms of compromising yourself, you're going to get into a bit of a problem, because we want to work with professional people, or they want to work with professional people. My name is Brita Masalethulini, and I was born and raised on a farm, and I am 41 years of age, and my claim to fame is that I was Miss Zimbabwe 1999, as well as the inaugural Miss Malika 2001, which was held in Sun City in South Africa. Growing up on a farm was, for me, a wild adventure. And I think because my parents were farmers, they made it even more exciting. I related very well from them, and I think fundamentally my principles and values for life stem from that upbringing, and it's somewhat what shaped me and molded me to become the person that I was. And in being adventurous, I guess this is what then led me to then pursue certain pursuits. Modeling wasn't one of them, actually. That happened by accident, because I never saw myself as being good enough for it. But I was a tomboy. I learned how to drive at the age of 12 after my father felt he saw it fit for me to be able to do so. I also learned how to ride a motorbike at 18. I had the fun and pleasure of watching rally races happening on the farm. But just that free spirit that I had made me really appreciate the farm life, the fresh air, fresh food, and the good company of people that we lived with. So my father had a way in which he treated us girls. We were 4 girls in our family. So he never looked at gender as being an issue, as is quite prevalent in our society. So he always had that encouragement to us to say that for as long as you've got a mind, you've got 2 hands, you can do whatever it is that you feel is possible within your limits. So he was one father who tried to push us as much as possible to see what we could bring out of ourselves through the experiences we had. And he never let us sit back and get comfortable as well. He exposed us to so many things. I mean, farming was one of the big deals for him. He would say, you got to learn to do these kinds of things. In a sense, he was trying to open up our minds. So in terms of limitations, he never put limitations on us, and he never had unrealistic expectations of us. But he wanted us to really just spread our wings and fly and become what we were born to be. Equally, my mother was a very, very strong and confident woman who also embodied what I would say made us understand our femininity in a sense, but also understanding our parameters and things that we should be looking out for in our lives. She was very strict, which is a very good thing, because kids need to be reined in. And considering I was a bit of an adventurous person, she'd obviously have one way of disciplining us, but she had so much love, very supportive. And I think they worked very well as a tag team in raising us to bring out the best in us. So I think in a great sense, that's what shaped and molded us girls in that family to become the things that we wanted to be, or to aspire to be what we wanted to be, because of that relationship and understanding that my parents had between each other. So for my grade 1 to grade 3, I was at Admiral Tate Primary School. And then from grade 4 to 7, I went to Selborne Rutledge Primary School. Form 1, I went to Oriel Girls High School. And then I changed to Queen Elizabeth Girls High School from Form 2 to Form 4. Then I did my A-levels at Venona High School. Then I went on to study graphic design at the Harare Polytechnic College. But I dropped out in the 3rd year to pursue my dream to become a Miss Zimbabwe then. So my decision to get into modeling was, could we say, sparked off by a friend who encouraged me. I was a very introverted girl growing up and very shy. I never saw myself as being beautiful. I had more of your tomboyish tendencies in that, you'd be climbing trees and you come home and you got grass in your hair. You're actually quite a wreck. So the picture I had of what a beauty queen was not the picture that I matched with myself. So a friend of mine now at college then says to me, "You look like a Miss Zimbabwe." I turned around and looked at him and I laughed and I said, "Are you crazy? Do I look like a Miss Zimbabwe?" At that time, Angelina Msasiwa had come forth at the Miss World pageant, and she had excelled and done so much in raising the bar and setting a standard, which I thought was impossible to attain. I looked at myself. I'm not that tall either in the modeling industry, but she was just so glamorous, so elegant, a far cry from what I was. There was a lot of work that needed to be done on me. So my friend then says to me, "You can do this. I'd encourage you, at least go join a modeling agency. They'll groom you and then you can take it from there and decide." So I had to first, in my mind, shape my thinking towards that. It even took a lot for me to actually go to that agency and sign up because I felt like it's not a world that I belonged to. But eventually had the courage to go there. And from the first day, it just became a love for modeling. And for me, because I had a preconceived notion of the modeling industry, at first I was very uptight and a bit apprehensive about it. And like I said, I was quite nervous. It took a lot of courage for me to walk in because I had a preconceived idea or a perception about it. I see the minute I sat down with the principal that ran the school, she made me comfortable. She looked at me and she was just like, "Maybe you might not make it as a supermodel, but I think with your face and your body, you can do pretty well in the industry and especially in pageants. But what we will do is we will groom you and then you can make the decision from there on." 2 weeks in already, I was working. So that's how it was. So I figured my principals are the ones who really made me comfortable with it. In terms of it being an easy industry, I can't say I had challenges or difficulties in it, as maybe some might experience. But I feel maybe perhaps it was the role that the agency did play in terms of making sure that we were well prepared. We were well groomed and we were certified to be able to go out and become great models. But obviously there are certain things about the modeling industry that can be restrictions, and you got to just learn to live with it and deal with it, that maybe it's not for me. Funny enough, my father, he was just, like you were saying, he had an attitude whereby he was saying, "Okay, you're young, you want to experience certain things, go ahead and do that." But my mother, on the other hand, she was a bit skeptical about it and worried. Because like we're saying, reputations do precede. And sadly, in any industry, and especially in the modeling industry, it may have been associated with loose morals. And like any mother, she wanted to protect us. And it came with a lot of convincing, okay, to the point whereby I actually said to my folks, if it means you meeting those who are running the agencies to understand how this business works, then so be it. And we did. It's only then that my mother she said, "Okay, let's see how this works." And she let me get into the industry. My father wasn't too worried because he always said that if you're a responsible person, you will get the best out of something. But if you're irresponsible, you will deal with the consequences yourself. You have to be mature. And he trusted me to do the right thing. And I loved and respected my parents, and I really did not want to disappoint them. But in the distant future, I could see the possibilities that came with me winning and making some extra pocket money since I was now going to college. So interestingly enough, I come from a family where pageantry was a big deal, and that's on my mother's side of the family. My mother was born in Kimberley, South Africa. It's actually a little small town on the peripheries of Kimberley, which is called Boshoff, but it's under Kimberley, Northern Cape province. And my late grandmother was actually Miss Kimberley back in her days. Then I have an auntie here in Zimbabwe as well, who was a former Miss Rhodesia. So growing up and hearing the stories about my grandmother, and we actually still have one photograph of hers, which, you know, I loved the way she carried herself and the way she had this, you know, she was so full of life. And she loved, you know, dressing up, and she was a very beautiful woman. And apparently she had been tipped to win the Miss Black South Africa at the time, but things happened behind closed doors at pageants. Unfortunately, she lost by a very narrow margin at the national pageant. But when we hear of the things that she used to do, I could in a way connect with her because I loved her and I desired the things that she desired. And I loved her boldness, her swag, if you can put it. She had it. And so I always, in the back of my mind, would say, it would be nice to be, you know, a beauty queen. But can I live up to that standard? Do I have what it takes to fit into her kind of shoes? So that kind of shaped my thinking and saying, okay, there's a possibility. Then again, I have an aunt who's a celebrity in South Africa, and she also then did her stint with pageantry, and she did very well. So I then said, there's a possibility, there is hope, but am I really the right person for it? The interest is there, but you then judge yourself and think, am I really the right, you know, embodiment of what that could be? It didn't work out. So in the later part of my life, that's when I got the courage to do it because they had walked it. My auntie, who's here in Zimbabwe, had also done the Miss Rhodesia, and she was considered very beautiful and glamorous. So I said, so maybe it's somewhere in the bloodline. But if this is for me, it'll happen. If it's not for me, I'll accept it. I'll bow out and say thank you. At least I had the opportunity to do it. So these are women I admired. Then again, it comes down to my own mother being a very key anchor in my life, in helping us to feel confident and beautiful and say that, you know what, you're beautiful girls, you can be whatever it is that you want to be. And then again, guiding us through life's issues and saying, you know, in different ways to say, don't do it. We've been there. Takambokura were these desires, and we faced all sorts of things that could have, you know, compromised us. So my mother is very, very key in terms of admiration. Okay, and she worked hard, very, very hard. And again, my father, again, is a very key figure in my life in bringing out that side of me, which I never thought was, you know, possible. The tomboyish nature. It led me to doing things that was, could we say, preconceived as being boys' activities. So I never put boundaries on myself based on that way of thinking. Now, you then look at two other women who are very, very key as well in shaping the way that I would then see the limelight. Kubi Chaza was well known for her products. I could say she was an entrepreneur in this country at a time when, you know, black women really didn't, you know, build businesses. But in the 80s, she rose to fame because of her, you know, her acumen and her abilities to now bring a product into the market. And today we are still using Kubi products. And so she was like, wow. But I never got to meet her. I actually don't know what she looks like, but the name has preceded her. Then you look at Shirley Nyanyua Chungoga, and she is another one, was the first Black Miss Zimbabwe, who did it for us. And having sat with the likes of the late Kiki Devaris, who was basically the patron of the Miss Zimbabwe pageant, she would talk about Shirley in a way that just painted this beautiful picture about the Zimbabwean woman in her natural element. She wore the macrame dress at the Miss World pageant back then, and she just wowed everyone. And then this then brought about, an opportunity for the Miss World pageant to be hosted in the Victoria Falls. I don't know if it then happened, but in itself was the caliber of women that we were then aspiring to want to become. They were solid, they were grounded, they were beautiful, they were elegant, and they were recognized by the international community. And so for me, it was a big deal. If I understand correctly, perhaps maybe I'm wrong, the likes of Kubi featured on a James Bond. She did a cameo role on a James Bond movie. So I was like, it's possible. The possibilities are there. We just need to now then step out and do them. But it needs a certain type of thinking and shaping of thinking that would allow us to then see that happening. To me, height wasn't even a factor. I always view women through their intellectual capacity or capabilities. How well do they converse? Because women are different. There's just so many, and we're such a wide variety, and you can't point to say one type of woman is better than the other. We're all different shapes and sizes. We are dark and lovelies, we are mochas, we are caramels, and then you got your so-called yellow bones. You name it. Women are different. But what I did understand about the women who I met who were very tall, and I'll give an example of Langa Sibanda, who was our former Miss Universe Zimbabwe, and Lina Zinyama. These women were super tall, okay, and flat-footed. I'd still be looking up at them in my heels, but I was just like, there's something I can learn from you, because whatever made you the queen, I want that. I feel it's going to benefit me somewhere along the lines. But it takes, being cognizant of your thoughts and the way you shape your thinking. Feel confident in your own body. I am not that tall in the modeling industry, right? Even at Miss World, they've got a minimum height, and then the rest, you can go as far as you'd like to go, maybe about 2 meters, which is a very rare sight. But the opportunities are available for everyone, and the platform is the same. The bottom line is, for what I am searching for in this life, is what can a woman deliver that is of value. That's what I was looking for. Anything that is brain food, soul food, spiritual food, if you can put it that way. And how does it edify people? Because it's not right for me to say one is better than the other. Okay, we have all our different abilities, but what are you doing with what you have to better people? But I would wear the heels, and it works on other people. If you want to intimidate certain people, yeah, you wear the heel. But when I'm flat foot like this, yeah, shit, it's game on. With Miss World, your minimum height is between, I think, 1.65 and 1.68 meters. And then in terms of how tall you can get, you then probably cut it off at 2 meters, which is a very rare sight. I've not heard of a woman who's actually 2 meters tall. But if I come back to Zimbabwean women who have really been really tall, Lina Zinyama was tall, okay? I think she was 1.92, flat foot. So imagine if she then put on the heels, she's just towering above your doors. But, an amazing lady. Then you have very, recently, Malaika Mshandu, who's 1.83 centimeters. Now that's tall, okay? Because if you look on average, Zimbabwean women are not that tall. We could average between 1.65 to about 1.75 meters. I fell at 1.72. That's where I am, okay? But that's considered short for the industry. But I really didn't mind, because I was like, look, how can I change my frame? That's what God made me to be, and I just have to accept it. So there are pageants now in the world that are catering for all these heights, shapes, sizes, colors. The world has just opened up So it's no longer just about one specific pageant catering for one specific type of woman. So you've got your curvy woman, your plus size woman, and then you've got your Miss Petite, which was very recent as well. Here in Zimbabwe, you've got your, could I say, girls were just unique in their own sense. Ages as well are a big deal, in that in the past you had to be about the ages of 18 up to 25 for a lot of these pageants. We've got pageants that we're seeing of women in their 90s, 80s, 90s competing, right? And your golden girls, if I can put it that way. So where it's an issue of now experience versus youth, okay, and they can pit each other against each other. And it's all in the name of fun and embracing womanhood. Then there's men's pageants as well. You know of the Mr. World pageants that are out there, where men are coming in and they showcase what their talents are. Same thing. So we can't now categorize one set of people and say, well, that's the only people who deserve to stand out. We're now seeing a world that's opened up to so many opportunities for everybody to be able to actually take part. We even have the latest one, which is very highly controversial. Yema looks the ugliest man in town or the ugliest woman in town. So let's, say there's a platform for everybody. As long as you're making an appearance and you're selling a product, you are a model. As I've said, that you can come from a background whereby you're maybe in the rural areas and the client is looking to sell something that appeals to the rural community. They're going to use you because you can relate well, or they can relate well to you. So they use commercial modeling, which is your television commercials, where you get to see someone smiling or serving cereal and all of that stuff. Then you've got your catwalk or your ramp modeling, which is those who dress, or they're dressed by a designer or a fashion house, and they walk up and down a catwalk to display the garments physically, right? And then you have those who are catalog models, print models, basically where photos are taken and then you appear in inserts or on magazine covers and anything else that is in print. Those are the main ones that we actually do know. But there's also those, could we say, obtuse types of modeling whereby you're doing product launches and you need young men and women to come and, handle hospitality, and they're talking about the product to clients. They are presentable, they are polite, and they know how to communicate. So they are hired on the basis of their, abilities, because it's expected that they've been groomed for such. So they're basically coming in as your ushers or your hostesses and the hosts who are there at an event. Others are there to just, direct you as well. But modeling has got so many different facets, but those main ones are the ones that are very popular and are still happening now. The only sad truth is that a lot of models do not know that they're actually models, and they're entitled to claiming something as a result. You may be excited about appearing on television, but don't just appear for nothing. There is some serious commercial value to you making an appearance, and whoever that client is going to benefit 1,000 times over, and you walk away with nothing. And that's the sad truth, that a lot of models do not know what they're entitled to. My very first pageant, which I won, funny enough, I was actually 6 years old. It was called the Little Miss Muffet beauty pageant, and this was held at Greater Men's Department Store when it was still running. And I had no idea what was going on. So the matrons took me there. They entered me into this pageant for young girls. It was actually a pageant for young girls and a little bit older, in their teens as well. So when I got there, I had shaved hair. I literally had a cheese scope and had no idea. I get into a room filled with people and I was just told, no, all you simply need to do is to get up on the ramp, walk that way, smile, turn around and come back. I did that. Next thing I'm being told, you've won. And I was like, won what? Okay. And they gave me a nice hamper with so much goodies, and I was so excited because at 6 years of age, it was like, oh, so this is what it is. But I didn't know what modeling was. It only then dawned on me later on in my years that that's what a pageant was. But that was in 1985. 1985, thereabout. So you can just imagine. Back then it wasn't so popular for kids to be doing that. But as a result, I was doing TV commercials. Again, you get paid and you're a child and you're like, oh, this is fantastic. In my teens, I entered a school pageant, a high school pageant, which is the Miss QE. And this was in 1994. And again, Angeline at that time had done well, and she was all the rage and the buzz. So I entered, having had my best friend talk me into it, and I was just like, oh, we can do this. She wasn't doing it. She was talking me into doing it. And yeah, I came forth and I was excited because it was like my first time in a very long time to actually do a pageant, but I was very shy. Like I said, I'd been an introvert for the longest time. And when I didn't win, I just said to myself, maybe this is not for me. It's for those who are actually born for it. It's only later on in the years, I think in 1995, I tried again for a high school pageant, and I was turned down at the door. I was told, no, you are not good enough, basically, by the young lady. And she shut the door on me, and I couldn't even get through it to sign up. So I really felt dampened in my spirit to say, am I that bad? Okay. But I just, in my mind, said, maybe one day it will happen, but not this time. So my first title, I first qualified for Supermodel Zimbabwe, and I was a semi-finalist at the Supermodel Zimbabwe through the agency that I entered through. And then thereafter, I won the Miss Polytechnic 1999. That was a shocker because I was terrified, considering I felt like the litmus test for me was the Harare Polytechnic crowd. They were very, very brutally honest. If they didn't want you, they would boo you off. If they loved you, they'd keep you on. Thereafter, I went and did Top Model Zimbabwe, and I was second princess there. I was very happy with that. I then went on to enter Miss Harare, and I won that pageant, and that would be my qualifier for the Miss Zimbabwe pageant. I then went on to enter Miss Lucky 7 Zimbabwe, and I won that, and that would then send me to go and compete at the Miss Lucky 7 International, which was being held in Swaziland. And I was first princess there. Just missed it. South Africa walked away with the top prize. I came in second, and then Kenya came in third. And the lady was Badanya Barasa from Kenya. And when I came back, I went on to compete for the Miss Zimbabwe pageant, and I won that. Miss Zimbabwe 1999, it happened. And that took me to the Miss World pageant. An amazing experience, and it was held in London. It was their, could I say, 50th anniversary, and so they wanted to bring it back home. And so again, for me, the decision to enter pageantry that year was because it was the turn of the century, the new millennium, and I wanted my name to be recorded in the books of history then, such that if you were to ever look up in our archives what happened in the year 99, I wanted my name in there. So that shaped my decision to do it. Miss Malaika was, I could say, the apex, the summit of my pageantry career, and for me an amazing and honorable pageant which I did, which opened up amazing doors for me. And that was held in 2001 in South Africa at Sun City Super Bowl. So yeah, loved it. I loved it. I never got too comfortable with winning a number of titles because I think I always had that frame of reference where I said to myself, I'm not good enough. But I more or less was challenging myself to see what my abilities were and how far I could go with it. I wasn't a sour grape, okay? If I didn't win something, to me it was acceptable, because I always believed that if it's not meant for you, then let it go and let someone else enjoy the blessings of what they've been granted. But being comfortable, no. Because with each pageant, you meet different women and they've got their own, uniqueness. One of my most challenging pageants, I could say, was the Miss Lucky 7 Zimbabwe. These were incredible women. Absolute amazing style, and they seemed really geared up to win. So I actually said to myself, I shouldn't go in this thing thinking that I've got it bagged. I actually went in there with a carefree attitude to say, okay, if I win, great. If I don't win, well, that's just fine. But I really wanted to go for the exposure of being at an international pageant, and that would be my first one. However, I would never say I was comfortable or got too comfortable. The lessons that I then gathered from each pageant, I think, were the ones that would then give me the confidence to go into the next one, into the next one. My mind, I'd already, said, I want to go to London. I hear it's being held in London. And the previous year, Annette Kambarami had won, and she got a car from Dark and Lovely. So I was like, a free car. You just walk up and down, answer a few questions. I can do this. Maybe I could also then win a car. I didn't get to win a car, but I did get a sponsored car for that year. So I looked at the perks as a motivating factor as well. But more importantly, I looked at the opportunities. Things like scholarships come out of pageants. Things like your name preceding you. It opens doors. When people know a lot about you, which is a big deal about branding and personal branding, when people know about you, they're able, or they're more receptive towards you, or they can shut the doors. Okay, let's always look at it in two ways. But the fact that I did it was an issue of challenging me and my own limits or limitations to say, is it possible? Because I'd come from that mindset where I just thought, as a farm girl, rough and rugged, is it possible for me to win against maybe the girls who are more polished and affluent? However, I had to prove it to myself. The first pageant I won, my dad didn't think I'd win it because he thought I wasn't serious. And that was the Miss Polytechnic. I remember he came to pick me up from it. He didn't come to watch it because it was a college event. And I told him, Dad, I won. And he was like, huh? What? You won? Oh, okay. And I was like, oh, so you didn't think I'd win? And he was just like, no, I really didn't know. But well done, well done. I held up the flowers and I showed him the sash and the crown. So he said, oh, okay, I believe it. Well done. Good on you. My mother, on the other hand, which is like, she then believed it when she saw me when I got home. The person who didn't want me to do this year was now in the forefront of making sure that I was on time for every pageant. I had everything I needed. She'd be like, hurry up, tanonoga. On time, that kind of thing. So the about turn for me, again, gave me the confidence to prove to them that it was worth, the decision that we then made. And I wanted to prove it to them that I was going to make this work for the right reasons. And yes, they were so happy and very proud of me. And I think it's not just my parents, but it filtered throughout the family and the families who were associated with us. I could say they were very proud, and I was happy that at least I was doing something for the family. I think during my career as a model, the pressure does catch up with you, especially if you are not prepared for the challenges that could come your way. Nobody had really taught me about being a public figure. So the expectations that the public might have, I felt to me were unrealistic. They are looking for a person who's basically science fiction. Nobody lives like that. You're always expected to look on point, even when you're not feeling like it. You're always expected to show up, be present, and look your ultimate best, even when you don't feel like it. And people won't understand if they see you dressed down, too casual. So I then learned a certain way of coping, and also learning the psychology behind people, is that you need to train people to accept who you are. People buy what you sell them. So my image now became an issue of, I will give you who Brita is. One, I'm a big boned person, okay? Gaining weight is so easy for me. So if I want to then connect with a young girl who will probably never be my height and will never achieve that weight, she needs to be able to be comfortable enough to walk up to me and say, you're a role model to me, or may you mentor me, or what else can you give me other than which I cannot attain. So I started to sell myself as a real individual, Brita. the tomboy in me came out, the sense of humor, the artistic side of me, because I am an artist. I paint abstract stuff. So I said people need to buy who I am and accept me as I am, because we tend to then set a standard and people buy that and they expect you to stay there. So I made my life simpler. I freed myself of any preconceived ideas or notions of what a beauty queen should be. And we don't all walk around doing the Queen's Wave and walking as if we're walking on clouds. We are normal human beings who just decided to take on this responsibility. So I sold what I felt people needed to see and know about me. The minute they know that this is who I am, I don't need to put on a facade or to pretend that I am something that I'm not. So you got to take what you're given. That's it. Whether people are happy about it or not. And you will always be criticized. There are always people who will say, but you're no longer slim and slender. And I just simply say, look, I've grown into the body that I was meant to have this year. Right? At times I'll say, well, now I'm a weightlifter. So yeah, I need the energy. I bring the humorous side of things because I want people to be real. And unfortunately, what media does or what television does, it gives you a portrayal or it sells you a doctrine or an ideology which is unrealistic a lot of the times. And many people fall, get hurt emotionally, mentally, spiritually because they're trying to attain something that is not attainable. Allow those who can attain those levels to do so, but you running in your own lane is a very key and important thing about being who you are or being a celeb. I'm happy to be on the right side of 40 because now this is where life's experiences have come in and taught me a lot of valuable lessons. And the things that I used to worry about when I was possibly in my 20s and 30s, I said to myself, why am I stressing myself? Or why did I even bother stressing myself? But that's the beauty about life, and that you get exposed to things. And later on in life, when it counts, you realize, you know what, this wasn't such a big deal. And now I've learned to shape my thinking towards things that are more developmental, more humanitarian based. And I am a businesswoman who wants to build her empire. I've got a desire to achieve a whole host of things. I've not let age govern me, okay? I've said my mental capacity or capabilities are what should determine where I want to go with my life. So I've said to myself, in the next 5 years, there's a series of things that I need to have accomplished as a woman in Zimbabwe, which are beneficial to this country, but also to an empire that I'm trying to build. I am constantly learning. I'm an avid reader of things, and radio for me has also just become one of those platforms where I feel like this is fantastic because I can then have conversations with people or connect with people on the basis of bringing knowledge to the table, and that's what we want to do. I think more than anything, the world is looking for critical thinkers. I would like to be one of those critical thinkers and problem solvers on major issues. The platform was created for me through Miss Malaika. But I knew that there were certain experiences I could not have at the time that I was carrying the crown, that now if I want to deliver them, I can do so. Back then, I was still, could I say, a baby at it. I am an advocate for women's empowerment, children's rights as well. And I believe in starting small, especially on issues of education, pushing the idea of making sure that every child receives some form of education, more so looking at the era that we're in. The fourth industrial revolution has brought about new things that a lot of our young people are not yet exposed to. So being able to bridge that gap between our children and people who have the technology to help our kids to advance, so that time is not wasted, okay? And children are running with the things that they love and desire. The old way of doing things, unfortunately, it has to go out the window. We now need to be focused on things that are relevant to our current economy and moving forward. What is Zimbabwe going to be doing in the next 5 years? Am I a part of it? Have I contributed towards it? And more so, my children, are they benefiting from my knowledge base? Am I shaping them into the women that I want to see them being? through my own personal experiences or having other influences in there. And I'm someone who's very big on issues of collaboration with the right people, having the right people around me. I'm very big on that, in that they need to speak positive stuff, and they also need to speak building things, because I can't risk being, losing out on the great things that could possibly come my way because I've fallen short out of a choice.